Good morning. Welcome, early risers. We're delighted you made it down here for this opening presentation. Our breakfast sponsor this morning is Visible Measures. And the Chief Analytics Officer, in for a treat, is going to talk all about data and how it informs, it can and does inform decisions you can make about your advertising and do make. So it's Siraj Barwani. We're happy to have him here. He's going to address you for 20, 30 minutes. We appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right. Good thing. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, good morning. It seems like everybody's relaxed. I don't know if it's because this is like the final day of the conference here, or the healthcare ruling is done and over, so there's sort of a sigh of relief. It could be anything. I'm really delighted to be here, but really bummed that I couldn't be here with some of the sessions that happened over the last couple of days. But looking through the transcript that I saw of some of the discussions, it seemed like there was a lot of interesting conversation happened here, especially with one of the topics that caught my attention yesterday, which was about this whole paid, owned, and earned discussion and how it relates with the media planning and so forth. And so there is one sliver of that where I would like to go a little deeper. And it has its core premise in the behavior that you have noticed and all of us have, which has to do with the fact that the consumers, at least in the last 18 years of the media business that I've been involved in, never have I ever seen so much consumer empowerment associated with a simple video or branded video clip. Users will watch it, discover it, mash it up, rewind it, comment on it, pass it along to others, and a whole slew of behaviors that go with videos, which, if you see what is inherent in that behavior, contrast that with how advertisers are concerned about the fact that people are using DVRs and flipping and skipping through the ads and so forth. Here, in this case, online, people are actually seeking out your ads, watching it and sharing it. Essentially, the efficiency that comes with consumers doing the hard work for the brand, and implicit in that, the endorsement that goes with it. One would have to wonder that there has to be some way in that value exchange that value could be extracted and will trickle down to the bottom line, whether it influences the top line or the cost efficiencies that come with it. I can go there probably one step forward today with some of the data that I have to share with you. So let's go down that lane. So the medium I'm talking about today is social video. So the only way we can talk about it is if I show you what this video content looks like that brands are producing and what impact they're producing in terms of the overall awareness they create. So let's go there.
How can I handle work on a day like today?
He thinks you're naked.
My shell is brown. It just looks like my milk chocolate is showing. Only a fool would think I'd actually show up naked.
So it's that kind of party. Hit it!
I'm sexy and I know it.
Quality rock! As the new CEO of K-Swiss, I'm using my genius ways to innovate at the retail level, incorporating things like fire and explosions. That's pretty awesome.
Find me an Italian restaurant in North Beach.
Okay, these 25 Italian restaurants are in North Beach. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me.
Well, friends, like all great things, this too must end.
So there you go. So what's different about this content? People actually sought out this content. They searched, discovered, these were some of the most watched ads, essentially. They may be slightly longer form. They may not be limited to the 30-second. It could be 45 seconds, minute, perhaps even 2 minutes long. But they were the most watched, the most shared, the most commented, and so forth. Everything from all angles that you can imagine, right? So what really happened here, right? So the domain we are talking about is, contrast that with the way we interrupt the users. If you go to Hulu and you want to watch your 30 minutes of catch-up on Grey's Anatomy or something like that, chances are you will be interrupted about 8 times with some sort of a free roll message that will come in there. That's not what we're talking about today. I have nothing to add on that. What we are talking about is about choice, which is people seeking out content and watching it and sharing and doing all the things on their own. Recall the comment from that youth forum that you had yesterday. People don't like ads in general, but in this case, they really are doing it on their own voluntarily, right? So here is a classic signature of a campaign that I will talk about, which will repeat in theme going forward for the next 15 minutes. So watch what's happening here. This is one of those campaigns for which you just saw the clip. This is Avian roller skating babies. What is different about this campaign is that the assets for this particular campaign, in particular that video, was launched 45 days before the TV flight. Okay, different. Once it caught on enough buzz and popularity there, that's when the TV campaign landed for the next 7 or 8 weeks after that. So what was already picking up and popular online, the TV essentially added more fuel to that fire, and it just went crazy after that. Full 40% of the viewership from this campaign was generated through what we refer to as earned viewership, which is organic distribution of content that the users passed along to others, and that generated incremental viewership. The orange is goodness. Just keep that in mind. We'll repeat, and I'll bring that color again. 188 million views generated by this campaign with an engagement index over-indexing 150, which means people spent more time than they do for an average length of comparable clips. Okay? Very interesting, exciting. Just keep that in mind now. Okay? Contrast that in terms of how this complements from that signature that I just showed you for this campaign. So start with TV. That's where most of you are spending the money, right? Media money. With TV, you buy audiences. You're buying GRPs, TRPs, whatever flight schedule you actually buy. Where does choice fit into this formula? Right here. You're buying access to certain online environments where users and your target audience will find it easy to discover your content. But that content can actually be socialized much earlier than the TV flight, or during, concurrently, or after. All of those behaviors you can see. But what does that happen? When you socialize, what are you achieving? You're paying to get engagement so that the content can be discovered. You're not forcing anybody to watch it. You're just placing it in the right places so people will find it. That is the paid component. When people pass it along, share it, and so forth, what you are getting is endorsement. We call it earned. So how do we measure the effectiveness? In its very simple terms, the earned to paid ratio. What does that mean? What's the incremental amount of media that you are receiving on a per dollar of investment you are doing in paid? Simple idea. So here's an example of a campaign, the Dove Evolution campaign that was run way back in 2006. An earned to paid ratio on this is about 8x. Here's another one. Tide to Go campaign, a Talking Stain campaign from 2008, 3x. Here's another one. One execution of the Responses campaign of the 9 different executions of the Old Spice, which resulted in 6x. Right? You getting the idea? This is really what's driving a lot of behavior. And when I talk about whatever it is I'm discussing here, it is based on our direct experience working with 4 major brands: P&G, Unilever, Microsoft, and Ford. They are the ones who've actually shaped what we have done. No surprise, some of the examples that I will show you will all come from our direct experience working with them. Okay? All right, so I can pick any big buzzworthy campaigns and show you all these E to P ratios. Until I've shown you a definitive study across hundreds of campaigns, I haven't really made a case yet. This is an example of a study we did with YouTube across literally hundreds of campaigns that cut across a whole lot of sports thematic campaigns, which is whether it's Super Bowl, Olympics, World Cup, you name it, right? Look at the difference in what this actually tracking is showing you. Campaigns that actually socialize the creative before running the TV spot produced approximately 5x better results in terms of the overall reach versus those who didn't. Okay? Are you with me so far? This is significant result. Here's another one. I went to Kraft and I showed that result to them, and they said, well, we don't do anything with sports. Talk to us about things that we do. Promotional campaigns, holidays, this, that, and the other. So we did this for them. 20 of the campaigns where we compared pre and post Black Friday. Advertisers who actually socialized a creative pre-Black Friday and then ran a TV spot correspondingly post-Black Friday. This is 30 days pre-post. Look at the difference in the results, 3x, both in terms of reach as well as overall earned capacity and amplification. You with me now? Okay. If you are even mildly intrigued by the data that I have actually shown you, there will be a whole host of questions that those 4 brands usually have asked us in one form or the other. What are those questions that get asked if they are interested in driving this kind of behavior or results? There are 4. First, what makes for a compelling creative in this medium that people would want to choose and watch on their own without having to interrupt them? That's the first question they ask. Second, flighting. When and how to leverage paid media. Third, impact. So all of these campaigns generate huge E to P. So what? How does that drive impact for our business? Finally, is this some random act of brilliance? Just about any enterprise has hundreds of video campaigns going on at any point in time. You could handpick 1 or 2 and show, look how great the results are. That does not impress the marketers, frankly, anymore. What they want is repeatable behavior. Is this something that's scalable, repeatable? Can we do it over and over again like we buy TV flights? There has to be some dependability for them to count on it. You know, remember, everybody's got to deliver quarterly results at the end of the day, right? So we're going to tackle these one at a time. Let's focus on the creative. The creative has to have 2 fundamental aspects to it in terms of the expectations you have to have. This is not just about getting somebody to watch it by forcing them. I said that already. This is about 2 psychological rewards to make this a compelling choice creative. One is a reward for watching and a reward for sharing. How do you do that? There are many things you can do, and I usually do a half-a-day session at brand marketers, to really show them all and dissect it all the way through. There was not going to be enough time today to talk about that. I pulled out a bunch of slides today, but I'll give you some hints on that. Number 1, any product that is being introduced with some magical qualities. Here's an example of that, Xbox Kinect. We were involved in launching this one. When the first video was launched, it was 8 months before. It's got the same signature, 8 months before the major launch with TV campaign happened. It was called Project Natal. And you know about that gestural interface. It was really new, newsworthy, and so forth. 60 million people actually watched that particular video. It was fascinating, And there were lots of bragging rights associated with that. Once you discovered something really interesting, you passed it on to everybody else. So half of it were actually done that way. But guess what happens? A version of that creative was then landed and launched a year later, and then another one a year later. You can see it isn't really magical the second time or the third time. Look at the consumption right there. If all you do is produce a great video, which is newsworthy the first time, it isn't going to continue to do that for you. It's like pushing on a string at that point. So what is the contrast to that? Take a look at this. Essentially, fundamentally, it's the same guy, the Old Spice guy. But repeatedly and consistently over 9 different executions and over 2.5 years, every single time a new creative is launched with the same signature, launched first, then TV, they can consistently deliver over 25 to 30 million people watching that every single time, and quite consistently. Why? It's because it is about engaging the users. It's about building a loyal audience. It is about not the same thing repeated over and over again. You see, the first time they launch the Old Spice guy. Second time, they give the Old Spice guy the voice. The tweets come in, he responds with videos. 189 videos delivered in 48 hours. Fantastic campaign, I showed you the result of that. Then comes the disappearance of the Old Spice guy, and he re-emerges, bringing him back. Then there is the feud between him and Fabio. You see, the story goes on and on and on. There is a theme to this. That's how you engage the user. That's how users come back to watch this stuff, because they care, they like this stuff, right? Talk about flighting. So what's different about flighting here? We did a study of 2,000 campaigns. We found that 95% of the video creative by the brands is actually ignored, because the way it's actually put out there is it's like a second thought. Let's just throw it on Facebook or throw it on YouTube and somebody will watch it. Well, with 60 hours of new programming going up every minute on YouTube, and then there are 250 other video destination sites, who's going to notice it? The upshot of all of this is front loading with paid syndication is the key to this thing. The first 5 to 7 days really make it or break it. If you're really interested, you need to hit the critical mass with some front loading, and it varies by the genre of creative and the category in which the brand operates. But at that point, if the creative is compelling, once it crosses the threshold, you will get a whole lot of earned experience associated with that. If not, it will fall flat. So flighting matters. How you organize, how you structure it, all of that. Third thing is impact. There was a lot of discussion, and I'm not going to go down that rat hole of likes and so forth, which was discussed yesterday. The point is, there are many ways to measure behavior, but there are some that are more meaningful. What I'm talking about here is about viewership. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're measuring. As long as there are only 3 things that every brand really cares from all the experience I have had. You either influence with all these behaviors something to do with brand perceptions and impact through effectiveness, whether it's recall or sentiments or positive favorability or what have you, or you drive them through where the locations are, whether it's your website or the dealers or stores or whatever, or drive transactions. If these behaviors don't do one of those 3 things, the whole thing is bogus. It does nothing. It's just a lot of talk. So let's talk about a brand that actually challenged us about 8 months ago. This is Ford. Jim Farley, through its agency, Team Detroit, Andy Prockin and that whole crew that manages media for them, came with a question. They said that we are getting ready to launch a bunch of new models next year. So all this discussion was last year. And Farley saying that we did something very interesting with Fiesta, and there are some great lessons we learned from that. Is there a way that we can create some sort of a repeatable template so that we can apply that to our model launches next year? Great question. So we did the analysis of all of the Ford data across a whole bunch of video campaigns that they have. And you can see, I told you, focus on the orange. With Fiesta, The way that campaign was actually conducted was 100 carefully chosen people were given free Fiestas with the expectation that they would drive it around and videotape their experiences and upload it on the Ford brand channel, right? Somewhere close to 23 million people watched these videos in the first 90 to 120 days with all of those 1,200 videos that were uploaded by the users who were sharing their experiences. So this is all viewership. The question was, well, how did that translate into anything meaningful from an impact perspective for Ford? Here it was. The charts you are actually seeing, the x-axis is all of the social viewership, the orange. The vertical axis are the brand health metrics, which they track on a monthly basis for Fiesta. What happened was that social consumption alone, causality established, I'll show you shortly, drove up 20 points of favorable opinion, which Ford has established that favorable opinion and growth in that is highly correlated to sales. Since we knew that, all we needed to do was to prove that social viewership does in fact drive favorable opinion. 20 points is a big deal. Guys, for those of you who've actually worked in the automotive business, you know. We're fighting tooth and nail for 2 points and 3 points going up in FO. Hard to do. This was huge. It was a head-turning event at Ford. So much has happened since this particular discovery, right? In that, we have essentially reverse engineered the whole thing. So what are we doing now? We have actually figured out by target, by model, by competitive space, how much viewership is required before the launch. As a matter of fact, the template is pre-launch launch. It's a 2-stage or 3-stage launch that you are beginning to see this year. Escape already launched. You just saw a few days ago, Fusion came out with Ryan Seacrest and the whole thing. That's the whole pre-launch activity. It's all following exactly the same template because we have the numbers and we have the prediction models to actually prove. Now, how were we able to establish causality? That's the question, because I can correlate anything to anything, right? I can correlate the pork belly futures to the weather climate in New York City. Who knows what the causality is, but I could establish that. Here, the reason we could is because there was very little paid media, if any, during the whole 12 months before the official TV launch happened. So what else could it be? Could it be that Jim Farley did an interview on CNN regarding the launch of Fiesta? Yeah, probably, some of it, but this was the only game in town otherwise. So that's how we established, and that's it. So repeatability is already being seen. There are lots of good results that are out there and so forth. So it's very interesting. All right. So if you are with me so far, the next question is, what can you do if you are close to any of these decisions about TV spend or launching of models or big thematic sports campaigns or other related holiday themed campaigns and so forth? What do you take away? First thing, everything you do as marketers, as somebody mentioned in one of the sessions yesterday who manages 10 or 11 agencies, as sort of the focal point from the brand's perspective, right? All of the work gets done in significant ways through your partners. You rely on your partners to do stuff. So with creative, you're relying on the creative agency or the production team, whoever is responsible for producing this stuff, right? Where is the control point? The control point is on the creative brief. If the brief doesn't ask the agency to push the limits of what the creative is going to do, which is don't just get the users to watch them, get them to share with others. All of those are an explicit expectation you have to have. Without that, where are you going to go? Why would the agency produce anything different for you? Make the media agency that's responsible for spending most of your money accountable for driving the high E to Ps. Guess what? Both P&G and Unilever have very explicit targets for E to Ps for next year. If you don't make it happen, it's not going to be delivered. You only get what you measure, right? Third thing is create attribution. Show what can be correlated. If likes aren't your favorite today, make sure that viewership is, because that's the reason why you produced the video in the first place, because you wanted people to watch it. So correlate viewership and attribute it to whatever you care about. It could be sales, it could be brand perception, it could be whatever. Whatever that matters in your business, right? And finally, create a template so it does become repeatable. And align all your partners around that. That's how you get the results. That's how we've seen the results. I've been at it for about 6 years now. It wasn't easy. It's been very humbling. But we've learned a lot in partnership with these brands and the agencies. Go talk to Mindshare, go talk to Starcom Media West. I mean, the relationships are very tight. They've really put a lot of energy into this thing to making us successful just as much as we have to making them successful, right? So that's really, it sort of goes hand in hand. So I got last 5 minutes in which I wanted to tell you who we are. Where is all this data coming from? So I represent Visible Measures. We were quietly going around doing our business 5 years ago. We have 2 sources from where most of our data comes from. We have our tracking code inside video players. So you go to ESPN, you go to MySpace, you go to Dailymotion, you go to Yahoo, MSN, Bing. Our tracking code tracks when you go in there and click on the play button and watch. We are tracking second-by-second viewing behavior. That's one source of data we have. But as we talked about, video once syndicated doesn't remain localized on the network where you put it. People will lift it from there and pass it on. So once it goes into the sharing destinations, how do you track? So we have API accesses through which we do matching through digital signature as well as meta tags to be able to locate where all the content went and spread through copies or derivatives or whatever it is. So now you get the full footprint of both on-network and off-network consumption. Once you have that, you literally know what happens to any of these video campaigns. And what we have is historical records, all date stamped, going all the way back to 7 years when we turned on our database. So with that, now we can do benchmarking. We can do norm standards across thousands of campaigns. If we have never worked with you, chances are very good we have all your video campaigns in our database. That's what the Unilevers and the P&Gs love, because they can compare and match and figure out what are the standards. It's fantastic. I love this stuff, right? So that's the reason why all these charts are done. All of the charts from Wall Street Journal to Advertising Age and everybody else that does weekly charts, viral video charts, political video ads, film trailers and Variety, all of that stuff is powered by us. It's our data. Okay, so we did measurement quietly, very happy as third party, until we started working actively with P&G and Unilever. They said, you guys have a lot more data, and you have amazing visibility into where people are watching and sharing all these videos. As opposed to just measuring, why don't you activate our campaigns too, so that you optimize viewership for all of this content that we are producing? Well, that was an interesting idea. That was P&G. Unilever, on the other hand, said, well, you guys know measurement is great, but we don't have budgets to pay for measurement. We are all about putting money against working media. Sensible. So figure out a way so that you are bringing media to us and tuck all the measurement underneath it. Well, the combination of those 2 brands essentially shaped what we introduced as Viewable Media. That package, that pamphlet that you actually see on your desk is about Viewable Media. So what is Viewable Media? It is actually a video network of premium sites that helps you syndicate your videos in that format that I just talked about. Whether it's pre-TV, when you socialize and make it easy to discover and so forth. It's not forcing anybody. It's not pre-rolls. It's not in-stream ads. It's really stuff that sits out there, and here's an example of that. The easiest way to understand what we do is start with search. What Google did for direct marketers, when you type in a keyword, you get your organic results. On the side are the paid clicks. You get free exposure until somebody clicks to watch or go wherever it's going to go, right? Take that model and replicate that on video. How would that look? Here, right here, at some of the sites where there is, let's say, NBA highlights going on. Users watching that. On the side, in that box on the corner, lower right-hand corner, you see, are these little thumbnails. Let's say one of those is a Nike content with Kobe Bryant or LeBron James doing their top 10 tricks and shots. It's sitting there quietly. It's a Nike ad, branded content. They keep getting free exposures until somebody clicks on that and watches that video because it's relevant contextually to what the user is doing. That's what we do. We're not forcing anybody. If they want to watch it, they'll watch it. And that's when they pay. Advertiser pays because somebody watched their video. All right? It's that simple. And the reason we are able to do that is because we are the analytics engine across hundreds of publishers behind the scenes where we are the ones serving up the content. So we know part of the editorial where to serve up the branded content with it. It's a good model. Here are the examples of that. Video galleries for Ford across InStyle or PopSugar or any of these sites. You know, it's all part of that. So when you click on that, it shows up on the main video player. That's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
Anyone? We have time for maybe one question? Yeah. Come on. Sleep coma? No? What? Yeah, Suraj, are you here for the rest of the day?
I am only here for the next half an hour.
Okay.
But here's one parting comment I have to give you. I get asked this question frequently about where is all this going? And by the big brands that we work with. And in just about every medium, there are always champions out there who are sort of the ones who are finding the path to where the future is. In our business in social video, it's the film trailers from the big motion picture studios in LA who really are shaping where things are going. If you haven't already figured it out, those 2-stage and 3-stage launches that I'm talking about all came from the film trailer release campaigns. The TV spend in film trailer promotions happens only in the 4 weeks or 5 weeks before the film is released. All of the social activity that happens prior to that has amazing influence on that. Okay? So it all derives from there. So what do you look at to know where we are going to be 3 to 5 years from now? And I'm not afraid to bet on that. Just look at Hunger Games and how it was launched. The Hunger Games promotion started a year before premiere. The studio had budgeted $65 million in TV spend for the 5 weeks before premiere. Everything else that came before was all socially distributed stuff. I know it because we worked with both Lionsgate as well as Summit on their Twilight series also. I couldn't disclose this information until the brand went public. Since they've already mentioned it, I feel the liberty to go say it. With $65 million in TV, by the time we were 8 weeks before premiere, it was very clear the market had been sufficiently saturated on all of the key metrics that the brand cared about. What did they do? They reduced the budget by 35%, down to $45 million. I will leave you with that comment. If that isn't the indication of where life is going, you need to think twice. The Fords, the P&Gs, the Unilevers, all expecting that if the user is going to be making all that effort and endorse their content, those efficiencies have to show up somewhere. And they better do. Thank you.